Ladies and gentlemen, last year alone, 3,000 to 4,000 civilians were killed in drone strikes. 900 of those predicted to be children. There have been cases of double strikes by US drones, a situation wherein a drone will take out its target and then fire again a few minutes later to eliminate the first responders. There have been documented cases of the psychological trauma experienced by the people living in areas where drones strike. They hear the drones humming above. The US does that on purpose to scare the people. US has had covert drone strikes across 5 different countries last year. Covert drone strikes that no one knew about. They were completely illegal. Strikes which took place in Pakistan, Afghanistan, Somalia, Yemen. Side propositions stand for a world where civilians are killed. They stand for a world where human lives are flagrantly disregarded, and they stand for a world where basic human rights are disregarded. They've lied to you throughout this debate. They've mischaracterized the nature of drones, no thank you, and as a result they've managed to make drones seem a lot less worse than they really are. They did this in 2 ways. One, they underplayed the accuracy issues that drones have. What they didn't understand was that a study by Stanford Law School at the end of last year found that the amount of actual high-level targets killed in drone strikes was abysmally low. A meager 2%, no thank you. That means that 98% of the targets killed in drone strikes were not high-level targets. They have underplayed the accuracy issues to an incredibly large extent, no thank you, and made it seem like a non-issue, whereas in actual fact it is huge, no thank you. Furthermore, they've compared military operations to wars. What we've heard from them throughout the entirety of the debate was that drones are just way better than land invasions because look at how many people die in land invasions. What they don't understand is that they were comparing all-out wars where one army is pitted against another, no thank you. They were comparing that to a military operation. If you want to compare drone strikes to something, then please compare drone strikes to the situation where a small team, a precise team, took out Osama bin Laden, no thank you. Because that's what we're talking about. The drone strikes that have taken place as of yet have not been wars. We haven't had wars. Side proposition has made an invalid comparison. All that we know as of yet is that when drones do strike, they cause an incredible amount of harm to the civilians, they cause an incredible amount of harm to the pilots, and they cause an incredible amount of harm to the people in the US who hate the drones. We know the drones have a terrible track record, and no thank you, the way that side proposition has been doing has been entirely illegitimate because they haven't been comparing like cases. No thank you. So let's look at the burden that stood on their side of the debate, right? All that we really heard from them, their entire case was that drones are really effective. What we needed to hear from them was that effective is a justification. And that's what we didn't hear. No thank you. We have never ever experienced, no thank you, throughout all of history, a situation wherein effective warfare is immediately just warfare. That is never a case, and that's what we needed to hear. So I'm going to rebut this idea, no thank you. What they told us was that because there are no people taking part in drone warfare, we have a bloodless war. No blood equals a bloodless war. In saying this, side proposition was effectively the US. Because what they don't understand is that drone strikes are never bloodless. They're bloodless for the US. They're bloodless for the 2 drone pilots sitting back in the US. What they failed to recognize was the fact that there are tons of casualties on the other end. There are people in other countries, no thank you, who are dying. People in other countries who are suffering a lot. Their analysis was that drones are really effective. They quell the issue very quickly and so less harm. Ladies and gentlemen, the bombings on Hiroshima quelled the issue very, very effectively. Shock and awe quelled the issue very, very effectively. So effectiveness, no thank you, is never a justification for using something.
But
yes, Josh.
So when we have to do an operation, whether it's small or big, is it better to use things which are more accountable, which are more rational, and which are more accurate, or people?
So, right, Josh, I'll respond to you by saying, first of all, they're just not more accountable. We told you a few times that drone pilots are not more accountable because they feel as if they're playing a video game. It's all virtual for them. They are never as accountable as the soldiers who are actually standing in the battlefield, taking note of every single person that they kill, first of all. But second of all, we'd say that you still haven't given us the comparison between a human operation and a drone operation. The only comparison you've given us was a human war and a drone operation. Look at the example. We gave you the example of Osama bin Laden being taken out in a targeted procedure. When you compare that to a drone strike, we find that the drone strikes are actually worse. There are more casualties in drone strikes. There are more harms associated with the drone strikes. So we can't look at this debate, no thank you, from the point of the US, as side proposition has, because that's not the motion. The motion is this House supports drones, not this House as the US. So we have to look at it as an objective observer. Are drones just good in general? Are they justified because of being effective? And this is where we see that side proposition's case falls entirely.
So,
We see, no thank you, that drones entirely remove the barrier to warfare. We told you how it removes the costs, and it removes the human costs. No thank you. But side proposition tried to respond to that by saying, well, you know, there are lots of things that remove costs to war. That's not a problem. Well, no thank you. What we have seen with the implementation of drones is that drones being implemented has directly increased the amount of strike that the US has done. The US has had more military operations last year and the year before when they've had drones than ever before. Drones have made it incredibly easy for the US to have military operations. No thank you, by reducing those costs, and it 100% removes the barrier to warfare and results in more net harms. We told you, no thank you, that drones cause the pilots to have existential crises. Don't underplay this, it is a serious issue. Drone pilots, no thank you, have committed suicide after months of piloting drones because they start to feel, who am I, as this kind of god to determine who dies and who doesn't die. No thank you, Josh. We find that the American public itself doesn't appreciate drones. We've had massive strikes in America against drones. I can give you, off by heart, the statement written on one of the drone protest posters. It said, drone strikes, making enemies faster than we can kill them. That is not only fact, but also how the American public feels about it. We told you that drones centralize power, no thank you. They stop a country from having to go through the entire population, all sorts of other diplomatic routes, no thank you. But rather Obama can click a button, or some US general can click a button, and decide that this drone strike happens now. And we told you, no thank you, that it further disbalances the power in the world. It makes the West far too powerful, but even more importantly at the moment, it makes America far too powerful. And no, small countries cannot access drones because of the decreased costs. Because the costs are never the barrier for those small countries. The barrier is the fact that the small countries just don't have the technology. Drones are very good at winning wars. No, sorry, drones are very good at killing people. If countries could have them, they would. But furthermore, we tell you that besides effectiveness not being a justification, drones just aren't that effective at all anyways. You see, drones are very effective at killing people. Drones have never been effective at conflict resolution, which is what they need. Drones breed radicalism. Countries that have been targeted by drones begin to despise the US ever more than they have before. And furthermore, drones disperse the enemy. When you're facing an enemy that you can't see or hear, you can't fight against it. So what do? You run for the hills. Enemies that have been the victims of drone strikes have instead become even more nebulous, dispersed, and become impossible to target from that point onwards. So because side proposition has entirely mischaracterized the way drones work, they've entirely mischaracterized the nature of the way up between wars and actual drone operations, and because drones are, at the end game, very, very unjust, we do not feel that this House should support drones. Thank you.